Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. A sigh escaped his lips as he gazed out the window at the setting sun. Another day gone. Another reminder of the youth and vigor he'd lost. His eyes drifted back to the lamp and, on a whim, he gave it a half-hearted rub. To his astonishment, a wisp of smoke began to curl from the spout. It grew thicker, swirling and coalescing into a vaguely humanoid shape. The smoke solidified, revealing a being with iridescent skin and eyes that sparkled like distant stars. "I am the genie of the lamp," the being announced, its voice resonating with otherworldly power. "You have awakened me from my slumber. As reward, I shall grant you 3 wishes." He blinked, mouth agape. This couldn't be real, yet as he stared at the genie floating before him, he knew it was no hallucination. 3 wishes? He repeated, his mind reeling with possibilities. "Anything I want." The genie nodded solemnly. "Within the bounds of cosmic law, yes, but choose wisely, for wishes often have unexpected consequences." He barely registered the warning, his thoughts already racing. Here was his chance to reclaim everything he'd lost, to fulfill the dreams that had slipped through his fingers. He thought of his younger self, brimming with potential, determined to make his mark on the world. "I wish," he began, his voice trembling with excitement, "to be a champion athlete at the next 3 Olympic Games." The genie's eyes flashed, and a smile that was not entirely benevolent spread across its face. "As you wish," it intoned. A tingling sensation spread through his body, starting at his toes and racing upward. He closed his eyes, anticipating the rush of strength and vitality that would surely follow, but as the sensation intensified, something felt off. His eyes flew open, and he gasped in shock. The world around him seemed larger, and his clothes hung loose on a frame that was decidedly not his own. He scrambled to his feet, nearly tripping over the now oversized shoes. Stumbling to the mirror on the wall, he froze at the sight that greeted him. Staring back was not the face of a male athlete in his prime, but that of a teenage girl with long auburn hair and bright green eyes. What have you done to me?" he demanded, his voice high and unfamiliar. The genie floated closer, that unsettling smile still in place. "I have granted your wish. You are now Valerie Thompson, a promising young gymnast with the potential to dominate the next 3 Olympic Games." Valerie. The name echoed in her mind, feeling both foreign and strangely right. She shook her head, trying to clear the fog of confusion. "This isn't what I meant," she protested. "I wanted to be myself, just younger and stronger." The genie shrugged, an oddly human gesture. "You wished to be a champion athlete. In this form, you have the greatest potential to achieve that goal. The cosmic laws of wish-granting are particular." Valerie sank back into the armchair, her mind reeling. She was trapped in the body of a teenage girl with a new identity thrust upon her. How was she supposed to navigate this? "You still have 2 wishes," the genie reminded her. "Perhaps you'd like to refine your situation?" She looked up, hope blossoming in her chest. "Yes, I wish to be changed back to my original self." The genie's eyes glinted. "Are you certain? Remember, you wish to be a champion at the next 3 Olympic Games. Changing back now would negate that wish." Valerie hesitated. The offer of Olympic glory was tempting, even in this unexpected form. But could she really live as someone else, especially a teenage girl? I need time to think," she said finally. "Can I hold on to my wishes for now?" The genie nodded. "Of course, I shall return to the lamp until you have decided. But be warned, the longer you remain in this form, the more it will become your true self." With that ominous statement, the genie vanished in a swirl of smoke, leaving Valerie alone with her thoughts. The next few days were a blur of confusion and adjustment. Valerie discovered she now lived in a modest suburban home with parents she didn't recognize but who clearly knew her as their daughter. Her room was filled with gymnastics trophies and posters of Olympic champions. She stood before the mirror in her new bedroom, studying her reflection. The face looking back at her was pretty in a fresh-faced, youthful way. Her body was lithe and toned, clearly that of a dedicated athlete. She wore a light blue tank top and gray sweatpants, standard attire for a gymnast between practices. A knock at the door startled her from her reverie. "Valerie? Honey, you're going to be late for practice," a woman's voice called. Her mother's voice, she supposed. "Coming?" Valerie replied automatically, then flinched at the sound of her own voice. It was going to take some getting used to. She grabbed a gym bag that sat ready by the door and headed downstairs. Her mother greeted her with a smile and a quick hug. "Coach Simmons called earlier," she said as she handed Valerie a protein shake. "She wants to work on your floor routine today. You've got a big meet coming up next month." Valerie nodded, trying to hide her panic. She knew nothing about gymnastics, let alone her own routines. How was she going to pull this off? The drive to the gym was mercifully short. Valerie's mother chatted about upcoming competitions and college scouts, while Valerie made non-committal noises and tried to absorb as much information as possible. The gym was a cavernous space filled with various apparatus balance beams, uneven bars, vaults, and a spring floor. Girls of various ages were already warming up or working on routines. A stern-looking woman with graying hair pulled back in a tight bun approached them. "Valerie, good. Let's get started on that floor routine. We need to clean up your transitions if you want to impress the national team scouts." Valerie swallowed hard and nodded. She had no idea what she was doing, but she couldn't very well admit that. As she followed Coach Simmons to the floor area, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. To her surprise, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. Her body seemed to know what to do, even if her mind didn't. As she began her routine, muscle memory took over. She found herself executing complex tumbling passes and dance elements with a grace and power she'd never experienced before. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. After practice, exhausted but oddly invigorated, Valerie returned home. She excused herself to her room, ostensibly to do homework, but really to process the events of the day. She pulled the brass lamp from its hiding place in her closet and gave it a rub. The genie appeared once more, regarding her with those starry eyes. "Have you decided on your next wish?" it asked. Valerie hesitated. Part of her still wanted to return to her old life, but another part was intrigued by the possibilities this new existence offered. The rush she'd felt during practice, the potential for greatness, it was addictive. I'm not sure," she admitted. "This isn't what I expected, but I think I might want to see where it leads. Is there a way I don't know, pause this, go back to my old life temporarily to sort things out?" The genie's smile widened. "Ah, a clever request. Yes, I could grant such a wish, but remember, time will continue to pass in this reality while you're gone, and the longer you stay away, the harder it will be to return." Valerie considered this. It was a risk, but she needed to clear her head, to approach this situation from her original perspective. "All right," she said finally. "I wish to return to my original form and life for 1 week, after which I'll automatically return to this reality as Valerie." The genie's eyes flashed. "As you wish," it intoned. The world around Valerie began to spin, colors blurring together. She closed her eyes against the dizzying sensation. When she opened them again, she was back in her old armchair, in her old body. The familiar aches and pains of age greeted her, a stark contrast to the vitality she'd experienced as Valerie. She looked down at her wrinkled hands, then at the calendar on the wall. It was indeed exactly 1 week before she'd first rubbed the lamp. Over the next 7 days, Valerie, or rather the man she'd once been, tried to go about his normal routine. But everything felt off. He found himself missing the energy and potential of his younger form. The mundane tasks of his daily life seemed even more tedious than before. He thought constantly about the life waiting for him as Valerie, the excitement of competition, the thrill of pushing her body to its limits, even the simple joy of having a family that cared about her achievements. As the week drew to a close, he made his decision. When the genie appeared on the 7th day, ready to return him to Valeri's life, he didn't resist. "I'm ready," he said simply. The genie nodded, and once again the world began to spin. When it settled, Valeri found herself back in her bedroom, as if no time had passed at all. But things had changed. In the week she'd been gone, Valeri's life had moved forward. There were new trophies on her shelf, and a calendar on her wall was marked with upcoming competitions she didn't remember. More than that, she felt different. The disconnect between her mind and this body had lessened. She felt more herself. Over the next few months, Valeri threw herself into training. She discovered a genuine passion for gymnastics, pushing herself to perfect every routine. The Olympic trials loomed on the horizon, and she was determined to make the team. But as her skills improved and the pressure mounted, Valeri began to feel the strain. The constant demands on her body, the strict diets, the grueling practice schedule. It was taking its toll. She began to wonder if this was really the life she wanted. One night, after a particularly brutal practice session, Valeri once again summoned the genie. "I'm not sure I can do this," she admitted, her voice wavering. "The pressure, the expectations, it's overwhelming. I wished for Olympic glory, but I didn't realize how hard it would be." The genie regarded her with those otherworldly eyes. "You have one wish remaining," it reminded her. "Choose carefully." Valeri took a deep breath. She thought about her old life, about the regrets and missed opportunities. She thought about the thrill of competition, the pride she'd felt in her accomplishments as Valeri, and she thought about the future stretching out before her, full of possibility. "I wish," she said slowly, "for the strength and resilience to face whatever challenges come my way in this life or any other." The genie's eyes flashed, brighter than ever before. "A wise wish," it said softly. "So be it." A warm glow suffused Valeri's body. She felt no dramatic change, but something inside her shifted. A new sense of confidence and inner peace settled over her. As the genie faded away for the last time, Valeri realized that her journey was just beginning. She had been given a second chance at life, and she was determined to make the most of it, whatever form it took. The next morning, Valeri woke with a renewed sense of purpose. She approached her training with fresh enthusiasm, finding joy in the challenge rather than feeling overwhelmed by it. The Olympic trials were just weeks away, and she was ready to give it her all. As she walked into the gymnasium for practice, Coach Simmons greeted her with a rare smile. "Valeri, I've got some exciting news. A representative from the national team will be observing our practice today. This could be your chance to really make an impression before the trials." Valeri's heart raced, but it was with excitement rather than anxiety. "Thanks, Coach. I'm ready." Throughout the practice, Valeri was aware of the watchful eyes of the national team representative, but she didn't let it rattle her. Instead, she channeled that awareness into her performance, pushing herself to execute each move with precision and grace. As she dismounted from the uneven bars, sticking a perfect landing, she heard a smattering of applause. Looking up, she saw the national team representative nodding approvingly. Coach Simmons hurried over, her eyes shining with pride. "Valeri, that was exceptional. I've never seen you perform so consistently across all apparatus." The national team representative approached, extending her hand. "Impressive work out there, Valeri. You've got a real shot at making the team. Keep this up at the trials, and I'd say your Olympic dreams are well within reach." Valeri shook her hand, a mixture of pride and humility washing over her. "Thank you. I'll do my best." As the day of the Olympic trials arrived, Valeri felt a curious blend of nerves and calm. The strength and resilience she'd wished for seemed to be serving her well, allowing her to focus on the task at hand rather than getting lost in worry about the outcome. The arena was packed with spectators, judges, and other gymnasts, all vying for a coveted spot on the Olympic team. As Valeri waited for her turn on the vault, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath, centering herself. When her name was called, she strode confidently to the starting point. In that moment, all her doubts and questions about her unusual journey fell away. She was Valerie Thompson, gymnast, and this was what she was meant to do. Her vault was near perfect, earning gasps of appreciation from the crowd and nods of approval from the judges. As she moved through each apparatus, uneven bars, balance beam, and finally floor exercise, Valerie felt as though she was exactly where she was supposed to be. By the end of the trials, Valerie knew she had performed well, but the competition was fierce. The wait for the final team selection felt interminable. When the announcement finally came, Valerie held her breath. And the final member of the United States women's gymnastics team for the upcoming Olympic Games, Valerie Thompson! The roar of the crowd washed over her as her teammates rushed to embrace her. Tears of joy streamed down her face as the reality sank in. She was going to the Olympics. In the months that followed, Valerie's life became a whirlwind of training, media appearances, and preparations for the games. Through it all, she remained grounded, never forgetting the strange twist of fate that had brought her to this point. As she stood on the Olympic stage, preparing for her first event, Valerie took a moment to reflect on her journey. She thought of her past life, of the man who had wished for a second chance at glory. She thought of the Genie and its cryptic warnings about unintended consequences. But mostly she thought about the present moment, the opportunity before her, the years of hard work that had led to this point, and the incredible experiences that lay ahead. As she chalked her hands and prepared to mount the uneven bars, Valerie smiled to herself. This wasn't the life she had originally wished for, but it was a life full of promise and possibility. And as she launched into her routine, she knew that whatever the outcome, she was exactly where she was meant to be. The crowd held its breath as Valerie soared between the bars, her movements a perfect blend of power and grace. As she dismounted with a triple twist, the arena erupted in cheers. She stuck the landing, arms raised triumphantly, a beaming smile on her face. The scores flashed on the board 15.766. A personal best and currently the highest score of the competition. Valerie's teammates rushed to embrace her, their excitement palpable. As the competition continued, Valerie maintained her focus, delivering strong performances on the balance beam and floor exercise. By the time the final scores were tallied, it was clear Valerie Thompson had won the all-around gold medal. Standing on the podium, the weight of the gold medal around her neck, Valerie felt a profound sense of accomplishment. This was more than just a personal victory. It was the culmination of a journey she never could have imagined. In the years that followed, Valerie went on to compete in 2 more Olympic Games, adding to her medal count and cementing her status as one of the greatest gymnasts of her generation. But more than the accolades, she valued the experiences, the friendships forged, and the personal growth she'd undergone. As she prepared for her final Olympic performance, Valerie thought back to that fateful day when a simple wish had changed the course of her life. She realized that the true magic hadn't been in the Genie's power, but in the opportunities she'd been given and the strength she'd found within herself to make the most of them. Stepping onto the mat for her last competitive routine, Valerie took a deep breath. The arena fell silent, all eyes on her. In that moment, she wasn't thinking about medals or scores. She was simply grateful for the journey that had brought her here. As the music began, Valerie moved with a freedom and joy that captivated the audience. Every flip, every twist, every dance element was a celebration of what her body could do, of the life she'd lived. When she struck her final pose, the crowd erupted in a standing ovation. Tears streamed down Valerie's face as she waved to the audience, soaking in the moment. It was the perfect way to end her competitive career. In the weeks that followed, as the excitement of the Olympics faded and life began to return to normal, Valerie found herself at a crossroads. Her gymnastics career was over, but she had her whole life ahead of her. One quiet evening, as she sat in her room surrounded by her medals and trophies, Valerie pulled out the old brass lamp. She gave it a gentle rub, more out of nostalgia than expectation. To her surprise, the genie appeared once more. "Your wishes have been granted," it said, its starry eyes twinkling. "What will you do now, Valerie Thompson?" Valerie considered the question. She thought about the man she used to be, about the life she'd lived as Valerie, and about the future stretching out before her. "I don't need any more wishes," she said finally. "You gave me a second chance at life, and I've made the most of it. Now it's time for me to forge my own path." The genie nodded, a look of approval on its otherworldly face. "You have learned well, Valerie Thompson. Remember, the greatest magic lies not in wishes granted, but in the strength you find within yourself." With those words, the genie vanished, taking the lamp with it. Valerie was left alone in her room, but she didn't feel lonely. Instead, she felt a sense of excitement about the possibilities that lay ahead. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.